Are we good? Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's regular commission meeting. I'm Vice Mayor Gail Neidinger, and I'll be chairing this meeting in Mayor Penny's absence. At this time, we will open the meeting with an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear God, we thank you on behalf of those gathered here for your many blessings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the wisdom to properly address the issues of our times. We pray for the agenda set before us today, and we continue with the welfare of our people in our hearts. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Mary Jo, the roll call, please.
Neidinger,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Penny.
Okay, and we'll start the meeting with the reports from the department heads, and I'll start with public safety. The Atlantic hurricane season begins June 1st. Forecasters predict a busy season, and now is the time to prepare. The 2024 Pinellas County Hurricane Guides are now available in print copy or electronic form. Printed versions of the Hurricane Guide may be obtained free of charge at the South Pasadena City Hall or at Fire Station 20. Electronic copies of the guide may be obtained by visiting https://pinellas.gov/department/emergency-management. This year's hurricane guides are available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. For local, up-to-date hurricane preparedness information, please tune in to one of South Pasadena Fire Department's virtual hurricane preparedness presentations available via Zoom. This year, the schedule will be Thursday, May 16th, 2024 at 10 a.m. and Thursday, May 30th, 2024 at 2 p.m. Links for each presentation will be available on the city webpage in the near future. Also, you can schedule a live hurricane preparedness presentation to be delivered at your location by calling the South Pasadena Fire Department at 727-344-1666. Okay, and Commissioner Thomas on finance.
Thank you. This is the Finance Department report as of May 14th, which is today. Fiscal 2025 annual budget process has begun. Meeting dates to be announced soon. The auditors are finalizing the audit procedure and will be on site for the next few weeks for completion. The third annual report for the American Rescue Plan Act funding has been filed April 30th with the Department of Treasury. All funds under the state and local fiscal recovery funds program have been expended. Total funding was $2,551,849. The fire station cumulative construction costs occurred for this project through May 14 are $10,853,386, which does not include the cost of the land. Thank you.
Okay, for the community improvement report, Terry Sullivan is out with a death in the family, so we don't have a current report from her. So we'll move right on to Tom Reed, Public Works.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Neidinger. Good evening, everybody. Hope you all have started prepping for hurricane season. Public Works Department started already. As you know, it'll be here before we know it. Tree trimming, canned goods, water, whatever else you might think of, battery-powered radios. I would suggest everybody Google hurricane kits. Get a good idea to put stuff in there that way. The Bayview Park Pavilion replacement will be going out to bid next Wednesday, and we will have our bid opening on June 12th. Public Works started the first of 2 sanitary sewer manhole inspections, and there are 156 manholes total in the city. Public Works also just had a new fence installed at the Annex Retention Pond and at Lift Station 4 on Pasadena Isle. The new fencing looks much better than what was there. And lastly, we'd like to remind our residents that of South Pasadena, non-residents, that Hibiscus Hall is open for rentals. And that's the floor down below us. Feel free to contact the Public Works Department at 727-384-0701 for any inquiries. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. For the Administrative Department report, thank you to everyone who contributed to this year's Cereal for Summer program. Children that depend on free meals at school during the year often go hungry during the summer months. The city partnered with Channel 10 and Feeding Tampa Bay again this year to help collect donations that will be distributed to families in need. Special thank you to the local 747 Firefighters Union for their significant donation again, and to our fire department for bringing the trucks down to the donation site at Publix on 38th Street at 5 o'clock in the morning. But we did an interview there, and it was really nice for the people to get to see our nice fire trucks. The second round of murals is officially complete. Murals at the Pasadena Bar and Grill, Kimberly Nails, and Pasadena Shopping Center were painted by local artists over the last several weeks, and we are thrilled by the pop of color and life that they bring to our community. Be sure to check them out and visit our local businesses while you're at it. The next South Pasadena Community Band concert is next Thursday, May 23rd at 7:30 in Hibiscus Hall, right here. Join the band for marches, show tunes, and more. For more information on the band's concert schedule, visit www.southpasadenaband.com. The city is currently seeking volunteers to serve on the Auditor Selection Committee. The committee is tentatively scheduled to operate from June through September and will assist in the solicitation, review, and interviewing and selection of auditing services. Applicants must have a professional background in finance and must be available to attend at least 4 committee meetings. Applications are available on the city website at www.mysouthpasadena.com and are due by 4 p.m. this Friday, May 17th. With the fire station construction nearing completion, talks are underway for a grand opening event. A date will be announced soon, and to be sure to watch the city's website or Facebook page for details. City offices will be closed on May 27th in observance of Memorial Day. At this time, I have proclamations to announce on behalf of Mayor Penny and the entire commission. The City of South Pasadena hereby proclaims May 2024 Building Safety Month to encourage a commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. And that's the administration report. Okay, at this time, we'll open the People's Forum. This is the portion of the meeting when the public can speak on anything that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone in attendance that wishes to speak for the People's Forum? No? Okay. So having no one, we will close the People's Forum. And next will be agenda comment. We will now accept agenda comment. This is the portion of the meeting that public can speak on anything that is on the agenda that is not a public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance that wishes to speak on agenda comment?
There's a hand up back there.
Well, come on up.
I just want to give some opinion, my thoughts on the documentary on things with causeways. Am I understanding this to go part of today?
Let me explain what is on the agenda today,
Yeah,
maybe too.
that's
Okay.
You have you have 2 ordinances on the agenda that you might want to speak on. There's a resolution too, but I don't know that that's something anybody wants to speak on. One of the ordinances is to amend the provisions of the code relating to the requirement for a special exemption for to allow docks for nonprofit community uses. I will explain more later why that's in there. I mean, unless you all would think it would be appropriate for me to just explain it up front.
I think it would be appropriate,
I think it's easier for me to go
so
ahead.
everybody
So,
understands.
you know what, we're going to go a little out of order then today.
Okay, that's fine.
Can I call me back up in a
And
minute?
then you'll be able to speak, but I think it would be valuable for me to explain what that and that might inform how you feel you want to comment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me just go ahead and explaining it. As many of you are aware, you were at our mediation as it relates to Conway Village. That there is a requirement of the code which says that in order to have a special exemption to allow docks, there's two zoning classifications that it is allowed as a special exemption. The first is the mobile home zoning designation, and the second is the multifamily designation. And what the code provides for is that the special exemption can be applied for non-profit community uses for docks of a private nature. And that provision has been in your code, in the City of South Pasadena code, for a long time. It is something that has been just out there. During the course of the mediation, notwithstanding the actual applications, I'm not talking about the application in and of itself, it was raised to my attention during the mediation from the attorney who was involved in, who was the mediator, about some, and you might have heard him ask me a lot of questions about it, some concerns with the language in our code. I wanted to take a break during that mediation to look at, again, we're not talking about right now the application, just the general code provision. And candidly, I discovered some newer case law that gave me pause. And it gave me pause to the extent that it was my recommendation to the commission, and it's my recommendation that we amend the code to take out the provision for the non-profit part of the use. But let me explain. What the concern was, and what the courts have sort of said, and this is where the risk is that land use regulations cannot regulate the ownership, how something is owned, whether or not it's owned by a corporation, whether or not it's owned by an individual, non-profit or profit. So that is where the concern is. It has to do with the way the ownership interest is defined. So in looking at this particular issue, looking at other code provisions, and looking actually within the body of the code for South Pasadena, and understanding that the whole point of that nonprofit community use was to ensure that that use was associated with the use, meaning that it couldn't be a separate use, that it has to be related to the actual use. In the South Pasadena code, there is an actual definition of what we call an accessory use. And I'm going to read that out. A use customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use or building located on the same lot with such principal use or building. That terminology of accessory use is really more akin to how land use regulations are drafted, meaning you have a use that you can have either a separate use totally, or you can have what they call an accessory use, and that's a use that has to be subordinate to the use on the property. That language has been generally accepted in courts and in other laws relating to that. So what this amendment is doing is taking out the terminology of nonprofit, inserting the definition of accessory, and indicating that you cannot have that use on that property unless it's accessory to the underlying use. So you would still have the same intent, you would still have the same process. What you're not doing is regulating how the ownership interest is, but the actual use of property. It is my recommendation, this recommendation that I made to the commission, that we revise that language because of my concern about some of the legal issues that I saw. You, as the members of the public, have every right to get up in this proceeding. This is not a public hearing. This is the first reading of the ordinance, and give your thoughts or opinions on that. Absolutely. But I thought it was appropriate, and I'm glad I got a chance to have this statement made prior to us proceeding forward so that you can understand the reasoning. There will be a second reading of this ordinance. That second reading will occur in the June meeting, and candidly, we will be bringing back something, and I haven't exactly formalized what this is, relating to the underlying case related to the mediation. That case is not part of what you're doing today, and I would ask that you do not have any comments on the mediation in and of itself today. We're likely going to bring something back, but if we do, you will be separately noticed like you were noticed for the special exemption hearing, and that will be a full public hearing. That is what is required under Florida law. Today is only the first reading of the ordinance, and it is only the provision that I am telling you about as we sit here right now, and it's really having the effect of swapping out the idea of regulating the special exemption as a nonprofit community use and making it an accessory use, which again is defined in the code. Keep in mind, nonprofit is not only not defined in our code, but really isn't defined in any land development code that I can find, which leads me to the reason I have concerns. So that is the underlying use. When you come up for public comment, you may have questions for me. I'm not going to be in a position to comment during public comment, but if I hear questions, when we take up the ordinance and during the first reading portion of the ordinance, if there's questions that I can answer, I'm happy to answer those questions. And thank you for the time to allow
Okay.
me to explain it.
Thank you for the explanation.
No, you can, we're gonna go into agenda public comment now, so that would be the time to put your comment on the record or your question on the record. When I get to the item, legally, I need to be in the item to be able to actually respond to those questions. We took this a little out of order, but I think it was appropriate.
Okay.
A lot of big words, I don't understand what.
Yeah. In layman's terms, when you get up at public comment, that would be the time to put those questions out on the table. And then we can go ahead and during the response time, I'll be able to respond. But again, this is agenda public comment. You have 3 minutes, and this is part of the regular ordinance process. The ordinance will only be read today on first reading.
And one at a
not
time,
public
too.
hearing.
Okay, and state your name for the record
Julie Sharda?
and address, right?
Yeah, 1375.
Okay, thank you.
Lot 236. So a question, those were a lot of big words, I don't think I understood them. What does accessory use mean?
Again, I'm going to take down all the questions, and when I get back into the actual presenting of the ordinance, I'll go ahead and answer those questions now.
Okay.
Are we able to get a current map of what the proposed plan is? The blueprint of the docks that have been proposed, there's been a lot of misunderstanding?
I'm going to actually answer that question because that's not related to the ordinance, that's not in front of the commission today. The only thing that is in front of the commission today is a potential change to the underlying ordinance.
And that was if it's profit or nonprofit. Okay, so I don't think I understand you, so I'm going to just read what I had prepared.
Go for it.
So we are concerned, I am concerned that Lakeshore will go outside the park to rent the boat slips and to protect, we are interested in protecting the nature and culture of our neighborhood and waterways. This bay has several shallow spots. And also we're concerned that if they're opening this up to outside persons, that they won't be scrutinized or background checked like current residents. We don't have the infrastructure. We have limited parking and bathrooms, so the excess cars could impede ambulance and emergency response. We just don't have the parking facility. And the excess use of our pool, clubhouse, it's already a dated building. I don't know that it could handle many more people using it. It's already infested and it's just dated, hasn't been kept up. Currently, our pool and clubhouse are non-alcoholic. They don't allow alcohol. I'm not sure that outside persons, if they're renting that boat slip, would abide by those same rules. In the previous language, documentarium was a term used, that documentariums would be allowed. That alarms me because of overnight stays and living on those boats. Again, that contradicts the current boat slip rental now. And then would those people also be scrutinized like current residents with the background check? Also, you know, the overnight hours, we would hope that they would respect quiet hours that we have now. I think I grabbed everything. And lastly, Lakeshore has had a hard time these last several years attracting and keeping staff like all businesses do. So I'm just concerned that with the added use that our community would go into further disrepair. Yeah. I wish I had brought pictures of the dock to show you as to what they look like now.
I have been.
Oh, you have?
I have been.
Wonderful.
Yes, and they're in bad shape.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
And just to remind everybody that issues related to the special exemption are not on the agenda today. This is just the amendment.
Hi, my name is Jamie Hibbert Gibson. I live 1375 Pasadena Avenue South, Lot 702. I reiterate a lot what Julie just said, but I also had questions. The documentarium is what really I'm afraid about, because if people are living on their boats in front of our homes, and that's where it's going to be, right in front of my home, with the excess noise and water, we have manatee and dolphin come by, and that's going to extremely impede that. But then, if they're living on there, where's their waste going? Where are they showering? Where are they using? We have one bathroom in the clubhouse that we have to, if we're at the pool, we got to walk all the way over to use it. So, I mean, we don't even have facilities at the pool. So it's it's extremely upsetting for a lot of us. Obviously, everybody here is from the park. So thank you very much.
Hi, Marguerite Clausen, South Pasadena. Again, I agree with what they're saying, but also, so now you're saying Lakeshore has the authority to, of course, rent it to us and also outside the public, if they felt like it, because if it's nonprofit, that means it's just basically for us. But if they're making a profit, so they could rent it out to you, that live down the block from here, So again, that makes like they said, the use of the bathrooms and so on. And also, they signed it, the lawyer signed it saying nonprofit. Why is this, a problem? He signed it back when, and that was okay, and now all of a sudden, there's a problem with this? I don't understand any of that. And what is, now you said it's not nonprofit, what was that other word you said there?
Accessory.
Right, and what does that mean exactly?
Was it?
Accessory.
Oh.
I read the definition.
No, I understand,
will read
but,
it again,
yeah,
and
because,
I'll give you more context
right,
when the
and,
time comes.
okay, and she saw the docks, they don't even take care of the docks that they have now. So it's not just us saying this, she's seen it, because, I'm sorry, your name?
Linda.
Saw it herself. What makes you think they're gonna take care of these docks?
I'm reminding everybody that what's on the agenda.
No, I understand, but I'm just, thank you.
Can I ask a question, Julia?
Yes.
Would this be appropriate time to ask a question of Julia?
Yeah, sure.
To get cleared up in my head, maybe it helps clear up with these folks. We're talking about changing the wording from imposing an ownership restriction on land, not how we're gonna negotiate how they can use it.
100% correct.
So we're not here to discuss the docks and bad repair, poor repair, this, that, the other thing. We are merely talking about, are we gonna change our code so that the ownership interest is not dictated by this commission, opening us up to potential litigation?
That is an excellent way to say it, and I'm going to reiterate it. The change from the term nonprofit, which is regulating how somebody owns the land, what I'm asking the commission to do is change that term to accessory use, which changes how that is used. By saying regulating how it's used, we are restricting it, I would say even more than utilizing the terminology of nonprofit. How is that? I'll just go, if you all don't mind, let me just go ahead.
Yeah, please, I want them, it is a complex
It's
issue.
very complex, so let me answer that question. It makes it so, exactly, I will give an example that has been raised, the Documentum initiative. Okay. Under an accessory use, the Documentum concept wouldn't be allowed. Because if they create a nonprofit, we couldn't control what they're doing. Like creating an accessory use, and this isn't just about Causeway Village, so put Causeway Village out of it. There's 2 uses in the city of South Pasadena that have this exact same terminology for both parks and for, playgrounds and those kinds of things, and for docks. So it's change is not just for docks, and it's not just for the mobile home zoning designation. There are other ones that have it. And what that is doing is making it clear that the city of South Pasadena is regulating how it is being used, how either the docks or the parks, in this instance, the docks that we're concerned about, are being used versus who owns it. So going back to the docondominium issue, the docondominium issue gets resolved by this change. Because you no longer have something that can be used as a separate use using like a docondominium or some other kind of organization that's a nonprofit. Say, for example, I'm going to use a playground example because I want to kind of stay out of the dock example. Say I had some kind of playground or a park, and I was the owner of it as a property owner, and I created a nonprofit use, and I all of a sudden started using it for soccer fields. All these kids are coming in, and I say that because that's where my son is right now, at a soccer field. And all these kids are coming in, and parents are parking everywhere, and all of that. It's a nonprofit community use. So from a regulatory perspective, there's nothing the city would be able to do. But if it's accessory to and to be used by, associated with the actual residential uses, then they would have more enforcement factor. So that is the intent of this change. The reason it came to my attention was because in sitting there and listening to the commentary, I have an ethical and absolute obligation to ensure that what we do in the city of South Pasadena is legally sufficient and supportable. And once I noted that there could be an issue, it was my responsibility to proceed forward, make the recommendation for the change. So I'll make it clear, this is not coming from the commission. This is solely coming from me as the attorney for the city. I do truly believe that this change will ensure both legal sufficiency of our code and also actually is a stronger language than the utilization of nonprofit, especially since it is actually a defined term in the code. So I think this gentleman wanted to speak, and then we'll take it.
Yeah, my name is Patrick Smith, and I live at lot 645, next door, obviously. I would only encourage the commission to do one thing. Council has proposed, I assume, the change to the ordinance as it exists, and for somewhat good reasons, I suspect. But that ordinance has been in effect for a long time, if I'm not correct. It's never been challenged by anyone before Lakeshore. And that's what created the whole mess. And I'm not going to get into that side. I don't care about the damn boat docks. But I'm talking about the change to the existing ordinance. That ordinance, and you yourself said, in fear of that being attacked. So should this council act in fear of something that's not been attacked by anybody since 1955 probably, or since that ordinance was adopted? It's never been challenged. So I hope that you guys consider the fact, don't make changes out of fear of what may happen when it's never happened before. And there's only one challenge to that in the whole existence of the community. Thank you.
Yeah.
Julia, can I ask you a question?
If the chair is okay.
Sure.
On their permit, it said it was a corporation. It was a nonprofit marina corporation. Could we not modify their permit instead of changing the whole ordinance?
Let's have that conversation. No, well, to answer your question, my concern as we sit here, and I'm going to say it again to answer the gentleman's question, there's been some new case law that has come out.
It wasn't a question, by the way.
Well, on the comment, because I think it is important. I understand something hasn't been challenged, you should just leave it alone. One, whether or not it gets challenged is subject to some conversation now, but secondarily, there is some new case law that did come out that came to my attention. It is my obligation to come to the commission and to you and to the citizens and say, this is my best recommendation for you. And I really do believe that this is stronger to deal with it as an accessory use. So regardless of whether or not anything else happens, I really do believe this change is required. And just because you've had something in a code for a long time doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be ultimately challenged. And it's important when things come to your attention that you make some hard recommendations. And I believe the commission is probably being placed with a hard recommendation in front of them. I didn't think it was important, I wouldn't be here to say it. And I just, for the record, I've been doing this for 25 years and have litigated land use cases before. And I'm not saying that for any other reason that I really don't want to see you get challenged on something that I feel can actually be not just mitigated, but actually made stronger with this language.
So I understand what you mean by that now, but now what happens, whatever, down the road, month, whatever, somebody comes and sleeps there and causes a ruckus. So who do we go to fight that? Lake Shore, or do we come back to you guys? And the other part of that is, can Lake Shore rent out the docks? If there's an empty dock for however long, can they go to the public or rent it to you or whatever?
I'm going to answer that in two parts. One, the first part is the following. As an accessory use, there's less opportunity for that to be used by outside persons of the public than it is a nonprofit use. Because I can create a nonprofit use and my ability to limit that is much different. And again, I'm not talking about this, the application you're talking about, I'm talking generally.
Right.
So being an accessory use gives you more authority. Second of all, as it relates to docks specifically, the code right now says docks of a private nature, they have to stay private, they can't be for sale, and as an aside, being an accessory use, they have to be used in compliance with and consistent with the other use, which in this case is a mobile home park. So like the pool, and which, like for example, your pool would be considered an accessory use.
Ah, okay.
So that's why, in my opinion, this is actually stronger language than utilizing a nonprofit, because you literally could just come in, place a nonprofit on there, show that you're nonprofit, and I don't know how one deals with the books on a nonprofit, but I can tell you, your ability to then challenge what they've done through a code enforcement proceeding, which would be the authority of the city to go forward with, it would be much more limited so long as they're acting in those confines. So the reason I'm making this recommendation and putting everybody in this position is because I truly do believe that this is stronger language than what you have today. And I would rather deal with it than just sit on it and not deal with it.
Okay.
Dennis Smith, lot 613. If they're changed to profit, will they be inspected
I don't know, well,
for safety issues, or,
my concern about answering that question is we're talking about the specifics of a
Doesn't
particular
that-
application. I'm talking about the generality
Okay.
of an ordinance.
okay, if it's changed for profit, does that give Lake Shore the option to list it for sale with profit docks?
If a community use is nonprofit or profit, whoever owns that community use has the right to do it.
So
what
with the
they want.
community use right now as a 55-miller trailer park, that's what it's designated as but if it's changed, it's commercial property, isn't it though?
I can't talk about the specifics, and
Okay.
actually, I'm not really even in a position to answer that question.
My own concern is if it's changed to profit, they're gonna sell it, the property, and we won't be out of it.
They can sell it.
I mean, as a general matter, the city of South Pasadena would never be able to tell somebody that they can or cannot sell their property.
I
So
understand,
that's-
I was just wondering if it's an option.
I mean, they always have, they have the option,
Yes.
anybody who owns property in the city of South Pasadena can sell it whenever they want. We as a governmental entity, would not be in a good position if we were to tell someone they can sell their property. So that part of it, I understand what you're saying, but that part of it is not within our purview.
I understand.
Hi, Nancy Nowak Smith, Causeway 645. The way you explained it, thank you very much, because I was a little confused. If it's nonprofit, the city of South Pasadena has no say-so with anything. You know, you can't do any regulations, you can't impose any kind of law, rules, regulations, anything, correct?
I don't know, that's not correct. In the process, you can, whatever case you have, again, I'm trying to stay away from a specific case, you always have the right to regulate it. The way the code is drafted right now, as long as it's in line with what it is you're doing, the way the code is drafted right now, docks are specifically intended to be private uses. They're, under the code right now, intended to be nonprofit community uses. In that context, that's what you can regulate.
Right.
As an accessory use for private use, you are now taking a step further, in my opinion, and what you're saying is your docks, or as I said, the parks, have to be accessory to your underlying use. So if your underlying use is a mobile home park, it has to be accessory, like your pool, like your clubhouse. If you are a park, you have to be accessory to those uses, versus nonprofit, where it's a little bit muddier what that's supposed to entail. Coupled with the idea that the law doesn't necessarily favor governmental entities regulating the ownership of property, how you own it, versus regulating the use. Whether or not that nonprofit's word would be a regulation of property or regulation of how you own it is where the issue lies.
Correct, so, so the docks per se, if this would fall under that amendment, they would fall under, you know, the playgrounds, under the South Pasadena, under that umbrella, if I understand correctly. So then, Lake Shore would be able to say, hey, politicians of South Pasadena, we want to do this, could you put that on the agenda, and we want to change this? So it basically open up more opportunities to change things. It really would.
You mean from a code perspective?
Correct. It would open up more opportunities to change things within, it would give them more opportunities to change things, actually. It wouldn't be more of a private sector, it would give them more opportunities to do whatever they really would like to do under the South Pasadena codes.
The only reason this is coming forward because I have people concerned. And this isn't coming forward because of any other reason.
But it is giving them more opportunities under the playgrounds and this and that, not just to be like, okay, you're a private sector, you're a private, you know, group, and it.
Well, you're still gonna have to be, all right, the way the code reads now, and this part isn't changing, docks have to be for a private use. That's
Right.
not changing.
So you can't, the door's shut,
That's right.
you have no other, that's the rule, the door's shut.
I'm not recommending a change of that portion of the code. The portion of the code that I'm recommending change is simply removing the term nonprofit and changing it for
And
accessory.
under the umbrella of
With accessory
playgrounds,
use.
and then, you know,
Well,
different politicians come and play, and then different rules come in play, so more
No,
opportunities.
there's a process to change any land development code.
Absolutely, so.
This one is not coming from the commission, it is coming from the legal department.
Yeah.
And me as the city attorney.
Well, I just want, you know, I just want.
And if I see,
everybody-
unless there's a legal reason to change something,
More doors are opening though, that I think that's,
I
to
mean,
make
I
that
can't.
apparent for the people here. I think so. Yes.
I don't have a way to answer that, because I
Okay.
don't really
Thank
think
you.
that I would agree with that, so.
No, I don't.
No, it's
Thank you.
okay, I understand.
Sharon Ryan, Causeway Village, 142. We all were here. We know why this is happening. He flat out told us, either make the change or they're gonna sue. So we all know why we're here. What I want to bring to your attention is the boat list, waiting list at Causeway Village.
Again, that's not on this agenda, we are not talking
But
about.
it is directly related, because what if they build these new docks, and currently we have 18 people on a list, and not all 18 people are even one of the list at this time. So what's gonna happen? They want this for profit, I just wanna bring this to everybody's
Okay.
attention. They want this dock for profit, they told us in meetings, we're not gonna build it if we can't make money. So what if they build these new docks and they can only fill 10 of them? What recourse are they gonna have to come back? They're saying, we built this, they all asked for it, we built it, they only rented 10, how can I rent these other 20? And they're gonna, mark my word, they're gonna come back here and ask, what can we do now?
Exactly, absolutely, they have said that. And I think this is, and we've allowed this to sort of
Yeah.
go into more of a.
I think you'll want to hear what I got to say.
But I think it's important, so as long as the commission is.
Yeah, yeah.
Patrick Smith, 645 Causeway Village. I tend to agree with you the way you said that. I understand, speaking on strictly the agenda and what we're talking about here, that language changed from nonprofit to accessory. Am I to assume when you say an accessory to a car is a windshield wiper, well, not windshield wipers, but fancy radio or whatever. An accessory to that park is anything that benefits that park, or even, you know, the private ownership, the homes and everything. An accessory to that property has to benefit that property. So theoretically speaking, down the line, you couldn't say that if these people's concern I'm speaking of, and I guess I'm one of them, their concerns of boat docks. If those boat docks aren't built as an accessory to that park, servicing that park, according to the way you expressed or explain the language, it can't happen.
There's a definition, again, I go back to, there's actually a definition currently existing in the
As-
South Pasadena Code that explains what, for the code purposes, an accessory use is.
As the pool is an accessory to the park, those docks would be an accessory to the park and the people that live in it, like the pool, like the clubhouse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that would really close a lot of doors for these people's concern with that language change. So I tend to agree with the language change based on the issue. Thank you.
Good evening. Marge Laron, Corey Way South, South Pasadena. The definition of the accessory use in Chapter 134 states, 130-4 states in buildings restricted to residence use, customary family activities not conducted for compensation shall be deemed accessory uses. Does this mean that our code defines accessory uses as not receiving compensation? If so, then it seems that the proposed changes to 130-10, 130-12 would also mean that no fees, rents, sales of dock slips could be conducted. This would appear that the change would negatively impact the residents of the communities which have docks currently, let alone making constructing docks for any multifamily communities impossible. I understand.
I'm sorry, I don't know what section you're talking about.
In the definition of accessory use, Chapter 130-4, the code states, and I have it printed out over on my clipboard, it says in the middle of that paragraph, that definition of accessory use, it says, in buildings restricted to our residence use, in the customer, do you want me to get my?
No, I got it.
Okay.
I understand now what you're saying.
Okay, so that's the part of my comment that is directed, directly to that chapter. I understand that the catalyst for this change came from the dispute, and the owner agreed to dock improvements, and the submerged land will be owned by Florida Not-for-Profit Corporation. They agreed to it, but when it was heard by the magistrate, and I understand that there's a problem with ownership, instead of changing the law, why don't we change the condition and say the docks and submerged land under the docking facility will be not-for-profit use? It's not saying anything about the ownership. They have to follow that condition by using Florida not-for-profit strategy. And I'm echoing, what others are saying. Changing the law for this project, it seems to be very unwise. And really, what I believe will open a door for that property to be redeveloped to mixed use. And then the accessory use is then mixed use. And what's mixed use? Commercial.
Right.
We'll address that last issue when we get to the actual ordinance.
Okay.
Oh, you mean when we do the public hearing?
Well, no, when we do the reading, I'll just address.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, anybody else for agenda comment? All right, so we'll close agenda comment. For tonight, there's no public hearing and no unfinished business. We go to the consent agenda, and that is for the approval of commission meeting minutes for the month of April 2024 on file in the city clerk's office. I entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, there we go. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Under new business, we have ordinance number 2024-03, and I'll ask our city attorney to read that by title.
Ordinance number 2024-03, an ordinance of the City of South Pasadena, Florida, amending Chapter 13010 and Chapter 130-12 of the City Code of Ordinances pertaining to permitted uses, providing for severability, providing an effective date. This is ordinance on for first reading. And I had intended to give all the conversation that I had previously as part of the ordinance reading, but since we had it already, I think you understand the positions that I had taken and what my recommendation is. I did want to comment on the discussion and the comment on the definition of accessory use. What is being what was called out as a concern is a statement in the in the definition, in buildings restricted to residential use, the customary family activities not conducted for compensation shall be deemed accessory uses. I actually think that even bolsters the argument even further. That is for buildings, clearly, for existing buildings. The intent being, if you've got, like, say, a clubhouse, it's not supposed to be rented out for general uses. I mean, I don't think that it says that you can't have fees and you can't retain money for the use or the use of the building, but it's not intended to be for extra compensation. And in fact, I think it actually adds to the arguments and the reasoning I have stated. I understand there might be some fear and some concern. It is the use of the terminology nonprofit and the concern that a court might deem that to be us regulating how property is owned versus how it's being used is the issue. As I've said, I do think this is stronger language than what you have right now. I do recommend that we proceed forward. If it's the commission's concern to not proceed forward or you want more time on this, I certainly understand that. But I think that between first and second reading, we can have further conversations, and I'm happy to talk with anybody further. And at the second reading, it will be a full public hearing, and we will be able to talk about the impact as this relates to Causeway Village. That is not on your agenda today, but that will need to be publicly noticed. So again, I recommend that we at least proceed forward on first reading today, and hopefully we can have further conversations on that for the reasons I've stated.
Okay, that makes sense. So I entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda for that ordinance
It would be a ordinance to pass that on first reading.
on first reading. And I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and all in favor? Aye. All right. Item number 2 is ordinance number 2024-03. And again, I'll ask the city attorney to read that by title.
This is ordinance number 2024-04, an ordinance of the City of South Pasadena, Florida, amending Chapter 130-46, Chapter 130-47, Chapter 130-48, Chapter 130-49, Chapter 130-50, and Chapter 130-51 of the City Code of Ordinances pertaining to requests for variances, special exception use permits, rezonings, and subdivision approvals, providing for severability and providing for effective date. This is first reading. And let me take a moment to explain this in case there's any interest in the audience. And many of you have been through several hearings at the City of South Pasadena, and we certainly have had these discussions before. The City of South Pasadena Code was amended several years ago to remove a planning and zoning board. There used to be a planning and zoning board that heard cases, and then it would come to the commission. Due to whatever reason that was done, there was a determination made many years ago to no longer have a planning and zoning board. When they amended the code, instead of just removing the planning and zoning board process entirely, they just removed the term planning and zoning board and put in city commission. And that's why many of you have been, as confused as many of us have been as to why we have a hearing recommending to the commission at the same hearing. That has been, like I said, in the code for a long time. Procedurally, we would have to follow that. But it certainly was not just redundant, it was incredibly confusing, and I think it probably created more problems than it resolved. City Commission has absolute right to make decisions on these things, and the need for that separate kind of hearing for a recommendation to yourself really was something that didn't need to be in the code, and it's really just as a cleanup item. But I did want to explain it to you, because certainly the 3 times that we've gone through Causeway Village as a hearing, not talking about the specifics, led you all to believe that, as I did, that that was an unnecessary requirement. So that's just removing that public hearing before the public hearing with the recommendation itself. There's still a full, absolute public hearing that will happen in front of the city commission for any of those items that are quasi-judicial, and this will actually, I think, make it a lot less onerous and a lot less confusing for everybody. So I'm recommending approval of this because I think it's just going to clean up your processes a little.
Okay. Need a motion and a second,
I'll make that motion.
and a second? And any discussion? And we vote on this. Mary Jo?
Nidinger,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Okay, and resolution number 2024-01, I'll ask the city attorney to read.
Resolution number 2024-01, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of South Pasadena, Florida, amending the Employee Handbook, Section 10-1, holidays observed by the city.
Okay, do I have a motion and a second for that resolution?
I make a motion.
And second?
I'll second it. Go ahead, Tom.
Any discussion? Second, Ben. And we'll call the vote.
Thomas,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Nidinger.
Yes. And with that, nothing else on the agenda, we'll adjourn this session.
Cocktail.
We'll be discussing this some more.